Hey everybody, happy Thursday. Pastor Matt here with your daily RPM. This week we're talking about what is in your hands. And this week, or today, I just want to speak to you about Elijah and a widow. Now there was a great famine in the land. As a matter of fact, it had gone on for a long time to the point where people were literally starving to death. And here's a widow, and she has a son, and we think it was a young son. And this widow means her husband passed away. She was not capable of providing for herself, and her son was young. This widow is down to just her last bit of flour and oil. And Elijah goes to her and says, "What are you doing?" And she says, "Well, I've got just a little bit left of oil and a little bit left of flour, and I want to make it into a little cake. And my son and I are going to eat it. And then that's the last meal we're going to have, because that's all we've got. And then we're going to starve to death." And Elijah said, "Bring some here to me first." Now many people, if a modern newspaper got a hold of that, they would report that a preacher was trying to rip off a little old lady. But the fact of the matter is, the preacher Elijah was trying to get that lady to take what was in her hand and put it in God's hand. Because when we take what is in our hand and put it in God's hand, God gets involved. And we see in this account in 1 Kings 17 that God performed a miracle, that her jar of oil and her jar of flour, the whole rest of the famine, there was a supernatural provision in that oil and that flour jar, that it never ran out for the rest of that famine. Because that woman took what was in her hand and put it in the hands of God, and God blessed it. It reminds me of a story in my own life. When our church was not doing very well, we started Soul Harvest Church back in 2002. And by 2003, we didn't have hardly anybody coming, other than my family. And I remember being so discouraged, and we prayed one night, and God gave us a wonderful word of encouragement. And we took all the money we had left that we could spend, and we wrote it as a check, and we sent it to another church and said, "We want to send this as a seed. We want to take what is in our hand and put it in the hands of God." And you know, just a couple weeks later, I got a phone call, and someone offered to give us a building for our church. There is so much more to that story, but I want you to know, when we took what was in our hand and gave it to God, God took it, and then He took His hand and put it on our hand, and He blessed it. And here I am today in 2019, and our church is touching the world. And it goes back to a little prayer in 2003. We took what was in our hand and gave it to God. I love you. I'll see you tomorrow.
If you like this video, like and share, and follow my dad on Pastor Matt Ministries.